Today, we're diving into the long-awaited Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, these were supposed to bring answers, right? But instead, they've kicked up this huge storm of controversy. And honestly, they've cast a really long shadow over the whole idea of justice. And this question right here, it's really at the heart of it all. I mean, after all this waiting, are we really getting the full truth? Or is this just, a carefully curated version of it? Let's dig in and figure out what's actually happening here. So, the second these files were released, they just blew up online. I mean, they went totally viral. Everybody was holding their breath, waiting for these huge bombshells, right? We thought this might be the final chapter. But nope. Instead of getting any clarity, the release just kicked off a whole new wave of controversy. And honestly, more questions than ever before. Okay, so to really get a handle on all of this controversy, we've got to look at what these files actually show us, and maybe even more importantly, what they hide, because it's painting a really incomplete picture. So, what exactly are these Epstein files? Well, they're a collection of court documents, some photographs, and a bunch of investigation records. The whole point of releasing them, officially anyway, was for public transparency. The idea was to finally let us all see the evidence with our own eyes. But, and this is a big but, there's a problem, a huge one. The very documents that were supposed to give us clarity are just littered with these big black boxes. So instead of getting answers, it feels like we've been handed a puzzle with half the pieces missing on purpose. Okay, so for example, an original unedited document might say something super clear like it connects a specific name to a specific date and a location. Simple, straightforward information. But then this is what we actually got. The name, gone. The date, gone. All the crucial details that give it any meaning are just blacked out. It leaves you with way more questions than answers, right? This whole process of blacking things out, well, it has a name. It's called redaction. And look, it's a pretty standard thing to do, censoring parts of a document for legal or security purposes. But the thing is, while it's a normal procedure, the sheer scale of the redactions in these files, that's what's causing all the outrage. And all of this blacking out has created this massive divide. It really brings us to the two sides of this whole debate, the public's outrage on one side and the official justification on the other. Think about it. People were hoping these files would finally answer some really big questions. Like, who were the powerful people involved here? Who knew what was going on? And maybe the biggest one, who was being protected? With all these redactions, it feels like a giant wall was put up to block those exact answers. And, the suspicion wasn't just about the black ink on the page. It got a whole lot deeper when some of the files were suddenly taken down and then re-uploaded later. For a lot of people, that made it look like the truth wasn't just being hidden, but maybe even actively manipulated. So here's the core conflict, right? On one side, you have critics saying that this level of redaction basically makes a joke out of transparency laws. They're saying the truth is being controlled. On the other side, you have officials who say, hold on, these redactions are legally necessary. Their main argument is that they have to do it to protect the identities and privacy of the victims. Okay, we need to pause here for a really important clarification. It is absolutely crucial to remember that just because a name shows up in these documents, it is not proof of guilt. Not at all. These files have names of witnesses, experts, all kinds of contacts. So jumping to conclusions and spreading accusations based on a name in a file, it's not just irresponsible, it's actually dangerous. So when you take a step back and look at all of this, the redactions, the controversy, all these unanswered questions, it really starts to point to a much, much bigger issue, one that goes way beyond this single case and gets to the very heart of how justice and power work. At this point, this case isn't just about one person anymore. It's kind of become this magnifying glass that we're all looking through, examining the roles of power, of wealth, and of influence inside our entire legal system. And it all leads to this one fundamental question that's just hanging over this whole story. Is justice different for the rich and powerful? All the redactions, the delays, the missing information, it all feeds into that deep-seated fear that, yeah, maybe it is. But this fight for the truth, it is far from over. You've got journalists, advocates, and just regular people who are still pushing and pushing hard for a full, unredacted release of everything. The pressure is definitely building, which means, we could still see more documents come to light down the road. So here we are, kind of back where we started.
The files are out there, but it feels like the real truth is still hiding in the shadows. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all. In a story this complicated, this disturbing, will the full truth ever really come out?